Hi, welcome back to the Story Lady. Today we'll be finishing up Who Was Alex Trebek? Chapter 8, Big Winners. In 2003, Alex and the producers of Jeopardy made a big decision to get rid of the 5-day rule. The audience had liked rooting for Frank Spangenberg so much that the show's producers wanted to give them a chance to get to know the contestants and root for them for a longer time. This change set the stage for the show's biggest winners yet. People started to last longer than a week. A taxi driver, student, and bartender named Sean Ryan won 6 games. A writer named Tom Walsh won 7 games. Then in 2004, Ken Jennings appeared on Jeopardy! For almost 15 weeks in a row. He won 74 straight games and more than $2.5 million. This rule change made a difference for Alex, too. Usually he didn't have any time to get to know contestants. He only really spoke to them for a few minutes during the show when he asked them a personal question to introduce them to the audience. But Ken was on for so long that he started to feel like a friend to Alex. The ratings for the show went up while Ken was on. Everyone wanted to see the software engineer who knew all the answers. Ken finally lost to a real estate agent named Nancy Zerg. When he saw he had lost, Ken gave her a hug. "Congratulations," Alex said to Nancy. "You are indeed a giant killer." Because Ken had been on the show so long, Alex did something special for him. He invited him back the next day so he could say a real goodbye to the audience who had rooted for him. The following year, the show itself broke a record. It won its 25th Emmy Award, the most ever won by a game show. It put them in the Guinness Book of World Records. Alex didn't have to wonder if this job was going to disappear. His life seemed to be very stable, but in 2007, his sister Barbara died of breast cancer. Alex and his mother were both with her when she died, along with Barbara's husband, in Los Angeles. Losing his sister made Alex even more grateful for the family he had. His mother, who now lived with him, his wife, and 2 children. Alex also still considered his ex-wife Elaine and her daughter Nikki as part of his family. Elaine had become good friends with Alex's wife, Jean. Elaine was now a businesswoman who had started her own company. In the summers, she gave Matthew and Emily, now in high school, jobs there. Alex might not have known as many answers as Ken Jennings did on Jeopardy, but he felt like he'd won just as big. The Guinness Book of World Records. The Guinness Book of World Records lists world records of human achievements and extremes of the natural world. It was started when Sir Hugh Beaver, the managing director of the Guinness Brewery, was visiting County Wexford in Ireland in 1951. He got into an argument over whether the golden plover or the red grouse was the fastest game bird in Europe. He realized it would be handy to have a book where you could look that up. It was the golden plover. The first edition was published in 1955 and was a huge hit. In 2021, the 66th edition of the Guinness Book of World Records was published in 23 languages. The book is sold in 100 countries around the world and holds over 58,000 records in its database. Chapter 9, A Different Kind of Jeopardy! One day in 2007, Alex was doing some work around the house. He felt a squeezing, tight pain in his chest. He thought he'd pulled a muscle. Jean insisted he go to the hospital to be sure he was okay. When they got there, the doctor told Alex that he was having a heart attack. Alex was grateful that Jean had made him go to the hospital. He also said he was glad he hadn't bothered the doctors for nothing. The public didn't know about Alex's heart attack. He recovered quickly and went back to work. In the summer of 2011, he went to San Francisco to host the National Geographic World Championship, a geography contest for students that he had been hosting since 1989. The contest was being held at Google headquarters. Jean came with him so they could have a vacation there when the contest was finished. While he was in San Francisco, Alex woke up in the middle of the night. He saw someone walking past the bed in his hotel room. Was he dreaming? No. He thought it must be Jean, but Jean was sleeping next to him. Who was in his room? Alex jumped out of bed. His wallet and bracelet, which he put on the dresser, were missing. He hurried into the hall just in time to see a woman duck into the little room where the ice machine was. "What were you doing in my hotel room?" he demanded when the woman came out. "I wasn't in your hotel room," she said, but Alex knew she was lying. He was going to call hotel security, but the woman took off running. Alex ran after her. About 20 feet down the hall, something snapped in his foot and he fell. He had torn his Achilles tendon, which attaches the heel of the foot to the calf. Alex limped to a phone to call security. The woman was arrested. It turned out she had already robbed a lot of people before Alex caught her. Alex still hosted the competition that day. He was rolled into the auditorium in a wheelchair and used crutches to move around the stage. He joked to the audience that if they shouted out any answers, he would chase them out of the auditorium. The next year, in June 2012, Alex had a second heart attack. This time he knew to take the squeezing, tight feeling in his chest seriously. Once again, he recovered quickly. He was ready to begin taping Jeopardy again in July. The audience didn't know about this second heart attack either, but they noticed right away when Alex grew his mustache back in 2014. He decided to let the viewers vote on whether he should keep it or shave it off again. The audience said, "Shave it again." Jean was happy because she liked him better without the mustache. That same year, Alex broke the Guinness World Record for hosting the most game show episodes, 6,829. Alex liked getting the audience involved in his life in little ways, like the mustache vote, but he preferred getting to know more about the contestants of the show. In 2016, a 41-year-old science content developer from Austin, Texas, really inspired him. Her name was Cindy Stowell, and she was a lifelong fan of the show. She won 6 days in a row. What Alex knew, but the audience and the other contestants didn't, was that Cindy had stage 4 colon cancer. Stage 4 meant the cancer had spread to other parts of the body, and it was very serious. Cindy knew she didn't have long to live. She had to take breaks during filming because she felt sick. Cindy's last episode aired on December 21, 2016, but Cindy herself had died on December 5, 8 days before her first episode aired. She had won $103,803, which she donated to cancer research. If Cindy had lived, she would have competed in the show's next Tournament of Champions. That was where past winners competed against each other. So when the tournament rolled around in 2017, the show made a donation to cancer research for her in her name. Chapter 10, So Long. Alex had been hosting Jeopardy for over 3 decades, but he still loved doing it. Other things in his life had changed. In 2016, Alex's mother died at age 95. She was living with Alex and his family at the time, but Jeopardy remained the same. It was on every weeknight all over the country. Alex still sometimes found interesting things to suggest as clues for the show. On a trip to England with his family in 2019, Alex visited a little fishing village called Whitby. He learned that this village was the place where Dracula first landed in England in the Bram Stoker novel in which he first appeared. That became a clue in a game that season. People were so used to Alex appearing in their living room every night, it was hard to imagine him not being there to introduce the contestants at the beginning of the episodes or to say, "So long," at the end of each show. But on March 29, 2019, Alex made a sad announcement. He had learned that he had pancreatic cancer. It was stage 4. The doctors didn't know how long he would live. Alex only knew that he wanted to keep hosting Jeopardy as long as he could. Fans of the show all hoped Alex would get well. During the Tournament of Champions that year, a contestant named Dhruv Gore did not know the answer to the final Jeopardy clue, so he decided to use his screen to say something more important. When his answer was revealed, it simply said, "What is, we love you, Alex." That same year, Jeopardy had another big winner, James Holzersohr. James was an unusual contestant. Normally, players started out with the easier clues in each category and moved up to the harder ones, but James was a professional gambler. He wanted to make as much money as possible. He jumped around the board, choosing all the hardest clues first because they were worth the most money. Alex thought this kind of strategy was a bad idea because it meant contestants were getting the hardest questions before they got familiar with the category. But James, to Alex's surprise, had no trouble answering the hardest questions first. James won $2,464,216 in 33 episodes. As one of the show's biggest winners, James returned to Jeopardy in 2020 as part of the Greatest of All Time tournament. He played against Brad Rutter and Ken Jennings. Ken ended up winning, but as always, Alex was rooting for all of them. As much as Alex wanted to continue to host the show, his illness made him too weak to continue, and he had to retire. He taped his last show on October 29, 2020, knowing it would not air until January of the next year. In the year 2020, the whole country and most of the world was forced to spend a lot of time at home to stop the spread of a contagious disease called COVID-19. Matthew and Emily came to stay with Alex and Jean, so their family was together. Matthew now owned 2 restaurants in New York City. Emily was a real estate agent in California. Alex was no longer strong enough to host the show, but there were plenty of things he could do. He decided he wanted to replace a cloth cover on an outdoor swing in his yard. To do that, he had to learn to sew on a portable sewing machine. It took Alex a long time to do it right, and he often had to stop and rest, but when it was finished, he was very proud of his work. Not long after that, Alex did something else he'd never done before. He sent a text. Even though Alex had a cell phone, he never really felt like he needed to learn new ways to communicate with people. But one day, when he was at home, someone had sent Jean flowers while she was out of the house. He wanted her to see them right away. So he started looking at the icons on his phone screen, searching for something that looked like a camera, then for an icon that looked like it would send messages. All by himself, Alex figured out how to take a picture of the flowers on his phone and send it to Jean. She wrote back, "Look at you, you're texting," and sent a picture. She included a few emojis. Alex didn't know how to send those yet. COVID-19. In December 2019, scientists identified a new strain of a type of virus called coronavirus. This new strain caused a disease called COVID-19, which stands for coronavirus disease, and the year in which it was identified. Because it was a new virus, humans had no immunity to it. It was very contagious and could be spread through the air. Although some people exposed to the virus didn't show any symptoms, many others became very ill and even died. In March 2020, to keep the virus from spreading, people were told to stay at home as much as possible and wear masks if they went outside. These precautions lasted more than a year. A vaccine that could protect people from the virus was not made available to most adults until April 2021. Alex died at home with his family on November 8, 2020. He was 80 years old. Alex's last episode of Jeopardy aired on January 8, 2021. He ended the show with a simple thank you to the audience and the words, "We'll see you again next week." Alex had never considered himself the star of the show, so he didn't call any attention to himself with a big goodbye. He just promised the show would be back. By the time the show aired, the audience knew that Alex had died. The producers of the show followed Alex's last words with clips of Alex and the song "Once Before I Go" playing in the background. The tribute ended with Alex waving and saying "so long" to viewers over the years. Alex Trebek had become an important part of everyone's life without them noticing it. Many were surprised at how sad they were to lose him, much more than they would have predicted. Alex was introduced to people as the host of a revived game show, but soon became a man who was beloved all around the world. The end. Thank you for joining us today.